Welcome to Screen Recaps, and today we are going to recapping the movie HELLHOLE. The movie opens on an eclipse night in 1957 with a priest entering a church with a newborn, the so-called seed of evil, marked by a scar on its chest. The priest, praying fervently, tries to kill the baby with a knife but is interrupted by the police. Despite his desperate pleas to prevent evil from spreading, the cops shoot him. The scene then shifts to 1987. Introducing Father Merrick arriving at the Erie Sanatorium Church. Merrick is welcomed by the head priest, Prior, who expresses gratitude for Merrick's willingness to assist in their exorcisms. Prior explains the church's struggle to find dedicated individuals for their mission. Merrick's arrival brings a glimmer of hope to the embattled sanatorium. After this, Merrick is introduced to another priest, Dawood, who greets him and begins inspecting his belongings. Dawood finds cigarettes in Merrick's suitcase and confiscates them, as they are prohibited inside the sanatorium. The prior then leads Merrick to his quarters, explaining that there is no electricity or phones in the sanatorium. He expresses hope that Merrick will be comfortable during his stay, and then leaves him alone. In his room, Merrick changes clothes, revealing a scar on his chest, similar to the infant from 30 years ago. He opens a hidden compartment in his suitcase, revealing a pistol, flashlight, and other prohibited items. He also takes out a newspaper covering the cases of 8 missing girls. It turns out Merrick is not a priest, but a police officer investigating the missing women, who were sent to the sanatorium claiming to be possessed. Merrick arrives at the sanatorium's main hall where priests gather to eat. He is served meat with an odd taste and smell, but finishes it to avoid suspicion. Later, he notices Piotr, the prior's assistant, consoling a distressed blonde girl. The next day, Merrick attends an exorcism and recognizes the woman as the blonde girl from the night before. She is bound to a bed, and the prior chants prayers, making her scream while Piotr records the session. The bed moves violently. A gust of wind blows, the woman screeches, and the prior's cross catches fire. Feeling uneasy, Merrick goes to the bathroom to refresh himself. The mirror shatters on its own, startling him. Discovering a crack behind the mirror, he leaves his quarters and walks down the hallway. He arrives at a mysterious room and starts to enter, but Dawood interrupts, saying it's the prior's room and no one is permitted without an invitation. Hearing this, Merrick apologizes and walks away. Later, he sits down for dinner and is served the same strange meat. Disgusted by its taste, he rushes to his room and vomits. He feels pain in his jaw and pulls out a tooth from which an insect emerges and flies away. That night, Merrick breaks into the prior's office, searching for clues. He discovers a crack in the wall leading to a secret room filled with exorcism tapes. Watching the videos, he realizes the exorcisms are staged. The exorcisms are a scam, but Merrick is concerned about the fate of the girls afterward. Returning to his room, Merrick removes the crucifix from the wall and hides it in a cabinet. The next morning, the prior summons the priest for a prayer meeting and asks Merrick to lead the session. Hesitantly, Merrick begins, but struggles with the Latin, prompting the prior to stop him and let Piotr lead instead. Embarrassed, Merrick apologizes. Back in his room, Merrick is terrified to find the crucifix re-hung on his wall. He realizes the priests are watching him and decides to escape. Grabbing his gun, he burns the newspaper about the missing girls and heads to the exit, only to find it chained shut. Later, he sees priests digging a grave and placing a coffin. Checking the blonde girl's room, he finds it empty, realizing she's been killed. Piotr approaches and invites him to the confessional room. There, Piotr reveals the church is watching Merrick closely, suspecting his ulterior motives. He warns that escape attempts are severely punished, leaving Merrick trapped and desperate. Merrick confides in Piotr, revealing his true identity as a police officer and disclosing that the exorcisms are staged. Piotr, already aware, explains that the girls are drugged to appear possessed by giving them ecstasy. However, Piotr is unsure of their fate afterward. Returning to his room, Merrick searches for spying devices. Moving the wardrobe, he discovers a hole surrounded by wet cement. Reaching in, he finds a strange object made of bones with a moving eyeball. Disgusted, he vomits black liquid filled with flies. Hallucinating his face covered in the liquid, he rushes outside and digs up the blonde woman's coffin, finding it empty. Before he can process this, Dawid knocks him unconscious. Merrick wakes up tied to a bed, with the prior and Dawid standing before him, ominously observing his predicament. The prior reveals they know Merrick's identity and have been monitoring him. They force-feed him strange meat until he loses consciousness. Later, Merrick awakens and manages to untie himself after a struggle with Dawid, whom he shoots dead. Rushing to the kitchen, Merrick discovers dismembered women's bodies in the freezer, realizing he has been eating human flesh. Piotr approaches him and leads him to the library, revealing an ancient book about the Chosen One, a figure born during an eclipse, destined to become a demon after devouring 7 sinners and drinking an innocent's blood. Piotr explains that the sanatorium worships the devil and believes Merrick is the Chosen One because of the scar he was born with on eclipse night. The sanatorium's goal is to complete the ritual and bring about a new world order through Merrick's transformation. Realizing the horrifying truth, Merrick understands the sanatorium's sinister intentions. Merrick, tied down and surrounded by priests, confronts the shocking truth about the Brotherhood's beliefs and their plans for him as the Chosen One. Despite his protests and disbelief, the prior and the priest are resolute in their conviction that Merrick is destined to fulfill a dark prophecy. As the priests prepare for the ritual to summon the devil through the portal in the church as well, Merrick had already consumed the flesh of the 7 sinners and the 7 meals, yet he still needed to drink the blood of an innocent. The prior brought forth a virgin girl, causing Merrick to panic and shout against harming her. Despite his protests, a merciless priest cut her throat and the group began drinking her blood. Merrick, refusing to partake, was tortured by the prior until he relented. Despite following every instruction from the book, their ritual to summon the devil failed. Disappointed, the prior sent the priests away, but before leaving, Piotr fatally stabbed Merrick and threw his body into a well, a supposed portal to hell. Later, the prior drowned his sorrows in drink, only for Piotr to suffocate him in bed that night. The next day, Piotr seized leadership, pretending grief over the prior's death as they burned evidence of their crimes. In the meantime, Merrick awakens in the well, surrounded by buzzing flies and bones. He feels a force taking hold of him, his body igniting with unbearable pain, prompting him to scream in agony. In the final scene, during Piotr's morning service, he suddenly chokes and becomes speechless, then levitates as his skull bursts open, releasing swarms of flies. A demon, the Sabbatic goat, materializes in the church, terrifying the priests who are frozen in place. The statue of Jesus slowly turns to face the demon, which mirrors the pose of crucifixion. Dead flowers bloom anew, hinting at resurrection for the deceased and eventual mortality for the living. As a thunderstorm breaks overhead, the sky opens, and the earth transforms into a hellhole.
I thought I was